What's going on, everyone? This is Reggie Haynes, and you are tuned in to a special edition of the Reggie Haynes podcast show. You know what? This is my first review, and we're going to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, first thing I want to talk about is how this movie was really captivating. It was a phenomenal movie. It really was. I'm looking at the review because I watched the movie 2 days before it came out. Don't ask me how. I got connections like that. But when I saw this movie, it really grabbed me by the heartstrings by the end of the movie. Throughout the movie, you see that Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, is living a miserable life. All he knows is work, save the day, abolish these supervillains, and, go home. And he was basically stalking his friends throughout 4 years on social media. It went through a 4-year period from when his friends became freshmen at MIT, and I'm guessing during this time he got his GED, etc. But we all know how intelligent Peter Parker is. And then it goes to, throughout the 4 years of Peter Parker, being who he is and studying and everything like that, his friends are graduating from MIT, and we see that they're, living their life, and he misses them dearly, but he is reluctant to tell them who he really is. Because by the end of No Way Home, which I'll get to that by the end of this review, you see that he made a deal with Doctor Strange. They did a spell to where everyone who knew his secret identity doesn't know who he is anymore. They only know Spider-Man, not Peter Parker, which is the true identity of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man is definitely miserable, and he wishes that he could have, the people that he knew back. Happy Hogan wasn't in this movie, but I felt like he and Spider-Man had good closure by the end of No Way Home. But at the same time, I want to talk about the cinematography. The cinematography was beautiful. I felt like during the dark moments where you knew it was going to be a fight that was going to be serious, or when the main villain throughout the film is Jean Grey, when you saw that she had intense moments to where she was jumping in and out of other people's bodies. And there was a scene where, she really messed with the mind of Spider-Man, threatening to kill MJ, and I think she did kill another guy. It was, you could tell, or the final showdown, the final fight scene, to where Peter Parker, he had to make a decision of balance and realizing, like, look, he has a dark side, but he also has a good side, and he had to balance those two in order to ward off these villains that were being controlled by Jean Grey, as she was trying to kill the main villain of the film, the leader of Damage Control. And we'll get to that in a second. But the cinematography and the dark scenes was great. I love how Sony always, creates their productions. It's always beautiful cinematography. The lighthearted scenes, you can see the sun rays coming into the shot, and it was beautiful. And then the gloomy scenes where it was like, sad types of vibes, and the sad moments, it was gloomy. So I love the cinematography for Brand New Day. Then let's get to Peter Parker and how he basically evolved from the first Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, then No Way Home, to Brand New Day. We're looking at a young man who we saw his career. Actually, we saw him first in Civil War, but at this time he's in high school. Then Far From Home, he's still in high school, but he's leaning towards graduation. By the end of No Way Home, he's graduating, doing his GED, and then we go through the simulation of 4 years throughout this movie. But at the same time, you see that this is a young man who had, so many friends, so many things that he was gaining. So many events happened between Spider-Man and then the Avengers, etc., to where he lost so much. And at the end of this, or by the beginning of this movie, you realize that, he's lost so much. He has no one. And that's in comparison to the main villain throughout the film, Jean Grey. This is a young lady who has the power and the ability to jump out of anybody's, out of anyone's body and, you know, basically control them. And she, throughout the movie, that's what she was doing. But you realize that she's only, you know, on this vengeful quest because she's looking for her sister. And when she, you know, realizes that, you know, her sister was the only person that she had, because this is a young lady to where her family or her parent or her mother abandoned her and her sister when they found out that they had special abilities. And now she had her sister, and then she ends up going to look for her, and she finds out that her sister's dead, and then she goes into full on rage mode. And you see how truly powerful this young teenager is. But if I would have to say, if I'm being a pessimistic person at this moment in time, I would say that there were times, and other people who have reviewed the movie have said this too, she had every opportunity to kill the leader of damage control. But I tell people all the time, I was told this when I was a child too. When I saw something, I was like, why are they waiting so long to kill this person? I would always be told it's a movie, meaning that a lot of times with these particular supervillains, superheroes, they're stagnant, or they're reluctant to go for the go-ahead kill because it's a movie. They want to add suspense to you, the viewer. Oh my goodness, is she gonna kill him? What's she waiting for? Come on, kill him, kill him. That right there keeps you on the edge of your seat. That right there keeps you entertained and engaged in the movie. As a producer, as a director, as a filmmaker, the goal is to keep your eyes glued to that screen, and that's what they do. So for people that are like, why didn't she kill him? Cinematic purposes. That's why. If this was if this wasn't, you know, a film, that guy would have been dead a long time ago. She probably would have weeped a little bit after killing the guy from the leader of damage control, and got out of there. But all in all, for all the people that's like, come on, man, like, no, it was because of, cinematic purposes. But all in all, I feel for the villain, like I do most of these movies nowadays, or just in general. I feel for this villain, and I love it how by the end of the film, you realize that Peter Parker allows her into his mind. And that's when she realizes that, you know what, there are good people out here. There are people who actually truly care for one another, and they care for someone like me. And when Peter said, it was a scene where she was like, I have no one, because now she feels like she's all alone. And, she lost her sister. Of course, I spoke about it a few moments ago. She doesn't have a mother. She has no one. And Peter said, nope, you have me. And that's when, she really embraced the fact that I'm not alone. See, I don't want to get all sentimental, but sometimes in life, when you are on a vengeful quest because you feel like you're searching for the last thing that can bring your life purpose, you don't realize that throughout all of this, there are people that's watching you and they really want to help you. But it's up to you to let them in or not. It's up to you to trust them. And she trusted Peter. And instantly after that trust or that pact was made between Peter and Jean Grey, I know it was signed, sealed, and delivered after that, because he sacrificed his life for that young lady. And after that, she used her abilities to help him stay alive until he was fully recovered. And another guy I want to mention in this movie was Punisher, we all know Punisher. He's a dark guy. He's lost his family. He's lost everything. And he ends up, breaking down in front of Peter and apologizing and saying, like, man, you know what, that bravery that you shown, that's one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. Because in the last scene, Peter Parker comes, to the facility where Jean Grey has basically taken over damage control. And she has the leader of damage control held hostage. In order for Peter to get to her before she kills him, because Peter doesn't want her to murder anyone. Peter has to go through the Hand and, these other guards, and he ends up breaking out his full potential. Like I was talking about earlier, that balance, the dark side of him and the good side of him, bringing that together to defeat or ward off these henchmen that Jean Grey has possessed. And once she gets to, once Peter Parker gets to Jean Grey, you know, she gets into his mind, and then they have the sentimental moment where she realizes that Peter Parker's a good guy and that he's there for her. From a distance, the Punisher takes a kill shot at her, and Peter Parker sacrifices his life, jumps in the way for the bullet. And once Punisher realizes that, he's, you know, he basically steps off, and he realizes like, oh my goodness, if Peter Parker sacrificed his life for her, that means that and then he also realized after the Punisher, that is, after he took the shot, everything went back to normal, because Jean Grey's powers were so powerful to where it basically froze majority of the city. And that's what led Punisher to say, you know, I'm gonna put a stop to this, because now she's becoming a major threat in New York. And Punisher is a hero. You know, even if you don't like the way that he does things, he shoots to kill. You know, that's his MO. He is a hero. His main goal is to abolish the villain. And throughout the movie, you even heard him say, look, I'm going to do things my way. I don't, you know, let these villains live to fight another day. I take them out completely. So when he realized that Peter Parker sacrificed his life for this young lady, he stepped off. He actually went to go get Peter, took him to the hospital. And by the end of the movie, Peter realized that the whole city was behind him, because they waited all day for him to come back to come back to you know, to full health. And he did, thanks to Jean Grey. And Punisher stayed by his bedside that whole time and admitted that, look, man, it's good to have a friend like you. So Peter, just being a good guy, he not only gained the friendship of Punisher, a guy who is just ruthless, cutthroat, and just a lone wolf, but Jean Grey was the same way. And you realize that Peter just being a genuinely good guy, even though he didn't have anybody, that woke up Jean Grey and Punisher to realize, like, dang, this guy has nobody. We have nobody, but he's still doing good. We can do the same. And they have Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, to thank for that. So all in all, by the end of the movie, Peter reintroduced himself to Ned, his best friend. And by the end of the movie, you realize that they did their secret handshake. And I could go into depth about that a little bit. Remember, in No Way Home, Ned, he has some magical hands, so his grandmother has said. And he was able to, you know, open up portals using Doctor Strange's sling rings, and also Doctor Strange's cloak of levitation ended up, you know, saving Ned and, you know, following Ned. And, you know, it was to the point to where it's like, hey, maybe that was the reason why Ned ended up, you know, having his hands, you know, just basically go back into the form of like, oh, snap, like this is the handshake. But also his memory came back. And earlier in the film, you saw that MJ accidentally, after Peter Parker spent time with MJ and Ned didn't know who Spider-Man was. MJ accidentally said Peter. And I'm guessing that at the end of the movie, Ned sees that, oh my goodness, you're actually Peter, Spider-Man. He's putting two and two together. I feel like from this moment on, Peter Parker is actually going to inform Ned, look, this is what happened, bro. And we were best friends, and this is who I am. And he tried to do the same thing with MJ, but MJ, by the end of the movie, you see like a montage, and in that montage, MJ is looking off in the distance. So I guess she's kind of like pondering, you know, did I make the right decision? Because earlier in the movie, MJ told Peter, after finding the note that Peter has held on for so long, explaining, hey, look, I put a spell on you guys for you guys to not remember me. But before this spell took place, you guys told me to promise that I will remind you guys of who I truly am. MJ said, I'm sorry, but the spell worked good enough to where I don't know who you are, and I can't love someone who I don't know. But she did mention that you should tell Ned, because I feel like, you know, it's different between me and you, but with Ned, I feel like it would definitely be, you know, be a great thing if you inform Ned that, you know, everything that's taken place, leading us to lose our memory and forget that we all were great friends. So the movie was, it was a great ending. I felt like Spider-Man had great closure. And for this title, to say brand new day. I feel like, yeah, it was a brand new day for Spider-Man, and it's a phenomenal one indeed. Moving on in the MCU, I feel like, oh, and also let's talk about Yelena. Yelena, for those people that don't know, Yelena is Black Widow's sister. She's been in a few movies. She was actually in the Thunderbolts, aka the New Avengers. They even changed the name of the title of that movie. And she was in this movie. She was in a hot tub, which is her office the whole movie. But questions remain, because people have said Brand New Day takes place during Doomsday. And I'm a firm believer that this Doomsday movie is going to take place in one day. Like, they call it Doomsday. It's one day. And I'm guessing that during these events of Brand New Day, Yelena is probably in her office. But as soon as Brand New Day ends, I feel like Yelena is going to go in, and all the events that happen in Brand New Day, in Doomsday are going to take place, and she has to get into Avengers mode. So, in this movie, she is one of the leaders of the New Avengers, even though she's dealing with things with the lawsuits, because technically, Falcon, or excuse me, the new Captain America, played by Anthony Mackie, he's the leader of the Avengers, or Sam Wilson, that's his name. But I guess they're dealing with that. But throughout this movie, she was very helpful to Spider-Man. And she played, like, a comedic role, but she was very helpful to him. And she did make 2 appearances in this film. So I thought that was great. But all in all, moving forward, in the post-credit scene, you see that there's throughout the movie, there was a Spidey tracker created by Ned, who is Spider-Man's best friend. And a lot of people had this Spidey tracker, even throughout the movie. How Punisher found out where Spider-Man was going to go have this final face-off with who we thought at this moment was the main villain, Jean Grey. Punisher tracked him, and using his Spidey tracker. So I'm guessing a lot of people have this Spidey tracker app, and Ned was the one who created it. Anytime Spider-Man has been seen, they get a notification. And on this particular post-credit scene, we don't know who's holding the tracker, whose possession it is. All you see is the tracker. And you see Spider-Man in New York, in Queens, New York, where he resides. But then you see a whole nother Spider-Man out in space somewhere. And it glitches in between as the camera pans from Queens into outer space. There have been rumors and speculations that Tobey Maguire will be in Doomsday. I believe those rumors, and I believe that's Tobey Maguire. Now, mind you, MCU is very good at throwing curveballs and letting people think one thing, and then they completely scrap it, and then they do another. So that could happen. I mean, clock is ticking, man. We got a few, 5 or 6 months before Doomsday comes out. The trailer just released a few weeks ago, so who knows what they might do. But I do feel like that is Tobey Maguire. Do I feel like this particular post-credit scene will be in Doomsday? Maybe. There's times where they don't put these post-credit scenes in the next movie, or in the movie that we assume that it's going to be in. But there's times to where I feel like there's a simulation process. This scene might not be in the movie, but at the same time, if you see a random person show up and then they see Tobey Maguire, they see this particular Spider-Man, it's because they were probably the one that had the tracker app, and that's how they got him. So I know there's a lot of times people like, man, how did that even happen? How did they? Well, remember in the previous movie where we saw this thing, that's how they got to him. Similar to the end of Avengers Infinity War. You never saw the scene of where Nick Fury and his coworker, where they faded away, Agent Hill, and they as he was pressing the button to get Captain Marvel to ring her or to call her, but we see Captain Marvel, she arrives at Avengers Tower, and it was because they had the app, or they had the device, and that's how she got there. Then you don't see that scene in the post-credit scene from Captain Marvel as well, but I'm guaranteeing that they spoke to her, they had a brief conversation, and then she got where she was like, okay, who's missing? who's still alive? Is there a way that we could track Tony Stark or who? And then she went to outer space and got. So there's a lot of ways, if you really dig deep, you can realize, like, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. Maybe, maybe this scene, we didn't see it, but maybe this is what happened in a simulation or in a simulated fashion. And that's why this particular scene makes sense now. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But overall, Spider-Man Brand New Day is my second favorite movie out of all 4 movies. I'm talking about Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, which I put them equally, at the same level. If I'm giving a ranking, I would say they're number 3. Brand New Day is my second favorite. And then, of course, No Way Home is my is my all-time favorite out of these 4 movies, because I'm a 90s guy. I'm a 90s baby. I was born in the 90s, and when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man came out, we never saw anything to this magnitude in regards to how great the CGI was and just the cinematography. So when we saw Tobey Maguire do his thing as the first Spider-Man, he did us all a huge favor. But seeing him again as Spider-Man, it was a beautiful thing. And I love how they just put the movie together, had the movie make perfect sense, even after all the events that have happened in previous movies that are connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They even intertwined Venom in the movie, and Doctor Strange, and all the villains, from previous movies in the Spider-Man franchise. It was just beautiful. And to have the Goblin as the main villain and him still being, such a phenomenal, villain. It was just a great movie to me. But I don't take away how great Brand New Day was. So for all those people who have not seen Spider-Man Brand New Day, go out there, check it out. It's a phenomenal movie. And I even saw some posts on Instagram where certain people was like, man, you know what, going to see Spider-Man made me feel like a kid again, or a child again. And I'm gonna have to say the same thing. The music is always phenomenal in these MCU movies, primarily in the Sony Spider-Man movies. So I know the big question is, will we see Spider-Man in Doomsday? I don't think we'll see, you know what, I take that back. I do think we'll see this Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, in Doomsday, but I don't think it's going to be as big as a role as we think. A lot of us were shocked when we saw Endgame back in 2000. I think it was 2019. I wasn't. I knew Thanos was going to win. But at the same time, a lot of people are assuming the same thing is going to happen in Doomsday. Dr. Doom's going to win. Okay, Peter Parker, you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to lead, the pack in Secret Wars, which is going to be the next movie. And it's just been announced that there's not going to be any MCU movies or TV shows in between. Well, I don't know about TV shows, but movies between Doomsday and Secret Wars. And I believe Secret Wars is going to be released a year after. So probably December 2027. So for all those people who have tuned in to another edition of the RHTV podcast, I'm your host, Reggie Haynes. Hopefully I can do more reviews like this for all the MCU and Spider-Man fans and supporters out there. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a great discussion. I know I've been babbling a lot, and if there's anything that I missed, point it out to me in the comment section. But before I go, realize that I have my own TV show, The House of Reggies. And for those that have not checked out season 1, the link is in the description below. And also, it is on the RHTV Network's YouTube page. And we also have Legacy, the series, which is a show, cartoon based off of the superhuman that is connected to the House of Reggies. And also, we just released our newest episode of the House of Reggies versus the New World. Season 1 is titled The House of Reggies, The New Beginning. Season 2 is the House of Reggies versus the New World. And to check out that particular episode or these particular episodes, click the link on screen.